Today in Masorti communities around the world, conservative communities around the world, we are giving a piece of Torah to bring attention to the Rohingya crisis. So in the lobby, I've printed out this resource guide if you want to know more about what's happening there. It contains not only a summary of the tragedy that's unfolding, but also ways that we can help, where we can contribute our dollars and our requests to our congresspeople. I'll give you just the first paragraph here. On August 25th, 2017, the Burmese army embarked on a massive and deadly ethnic cleansing campaign targeting the Rohingya people. After a group of Rohingya men attacked a police post, the Burmese army responded with disproportionate violence, indiscriminately firing at Rohingya civilians, setting entire villages aflame, and committing sexual violence against women. Since August, more than 671,000 Rohingya people have fled their homes in the western Rakhine state of Burma and made the perilous journey to crowded refugee camps in Bangladesh. Those who remain in the Rakhine state now live in danger of starvation and continued attacks. There's also a concern that as we move into monsoon season, they are situated right in the place where mudslides happen, and there is not a good way to evacuate 671,000 people from that site. So the Torah that we're going to look at is in your hands. Raise your hand if you have a few extra around you. Raise your hand if you need one. Okay, we're good. We're good. So we did not read this part of our Parsha this morning, but it is part of Shemini. Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu are killed, and he responds with silence. So let's start on page 2 together. We'll break from our usual method of doing this in small groups. We'll just do it as one large group. Would someone like to read Now Aaron's Sons, the first source? Thanks, Lauren. Okay, so how do we understand Aaron's silence? What is he signifying with silence? Astonishment. He's in shock.
I don't know. He's got a relationship with God. He understands and accepts what's happening.
Okay.
I disagree with that. I think he was silent in protest.
Right, I'm not talking to you, God. So maybe it's a sign of acceptance, maybe it's a sign of defiance.
So I think it's sort of a way of protesting, Moses is doing the whole, it's for a reason kind of thing. Moses was kind of like holy splaining, and Aaron is
Can I commandeer that phrase, holy splaining? Thank you. Arnie?
Well, Aaron is the one who built the golden calf and had some guilt that was so associated with that.
Oh. Okay. He's guilt-ridden. John. Right. Right. Yeah, there's one stream of rabbinic thought that says their being taken by fire was not a punishment, it was actually an ascension, and like a quick, ascension into heaven, that it was a reward for their service. Okay, but then the next question is, in what ways is the death of Aaron's son similar to the violence perpetrated against the Rohingya, and where does the analogy break down? So for me, the analogy broke down pretty quickly, but maybe someone else sees a stronger connection. Cliff.
I saw no connection whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that anything, maybe it's closer to our commitment to wipe out Abimelech.
Right, an ethnic cleansing, a genocide. Steve,
The only similarity is silence.
that the world responds with silence,
That's the only similarity that I see.
and how well we know that silence. Adib. Okay. John? They are. Buddhists. Buddhists. Okay, that could be. Well, you know, in theory, Jews, Muslims, Christians all believe in peace and not war, so, but I agree.
Well, it goes back to what you said, that the Rohingya, there was an attack, and the Burmese reacted. Now, their reaction is certainly overreaction, and one could argue that maybe Aaron's sons didn't do something that horrible, but God's reaction was an overreaction.
I think it confirms, though, that when we talk about the parallels, the Burmese took on the mantle of God, which is,
Yeah.
they took it upon themselves to exterminate people they saw wrongdoing around them. I know that that's a proper assumption on this part.
Well, you guys did better than I did with making the analogies. Let's skip to page 3 and look at the blue Greenberg text. She says, Aaron responded with a profound, shattering silence, a stunning silence, a shocked silence. He does not justify the cruel decree by blaming his sons and accepting their fate as punishment for their sins, yet neither does he revolt or protest God's action. Total silence. Aaron's response is the profoundest human and religious response to the reality that there are times when good people die unjustly or are consumed in tragedies that seem to be arbitrary, shocking, without justification, and with nothing to ameliorate the pain and loss of those who love them. As compared to Rabbi Eliezer Diamond, perhaps Aaron's silence was a form of disengagement in at least 2 senses. The first may have been an emotional reaction beyond his control. The horror of what had occurred was so great that Aaron's mind may have shut down, thereby blanking out what had befallen his sons. Perhaps it was only in this way that he could bear the pain of his loss at that moment. It may also be, however, that Aaron's silence was a means of disengaging from his persona as priest. How difficult it must have been for Aaron to serve God in the very place where that same God had taken the lives of 2 of his children. Aaron continued his holy work, but there was some part of him that was now silent, that did not turn to God in prayer and praise as it did in the past. The fire that killed Aaron's sons had wounded him profoundly as well. So the discussion questions are on page 4. How do Ms. Greenberg's and Rabbi Diamond's reflections shape your understanding of Aaron's silence and of our silence in the face of the crisis facing the Rohingya, and perhaps we could add the world silence in facing the crisis of the Holocaust? Debbie.
My initial reaction is some things are just so prolific, you just can't
Find the words.
see that the words process.
Sid?
I think it's a way for the world to have this denial, like that kind of horror can't really happen. So they must be exaggerating. And I think you get that when you have these horrible crises and you have people who like to promote that concept of, oh, you're overblowing it, when in reality it's just beyond what they want to comprehend or believe about others.
Okay.
So,
Chuck?
Well, what's incomprehensible is what there were 40 to 60 civilians killed by gas attack in Syria. And what do? We respond with military might. You've got hundreds of thousands of people being killed here, and nobody does anything.
Yeah.
Is it because they're Buddhists and Muslims? Is it, why do we react
In one situation and not another.
not another?
Yeah. And do we react with more violence, or do we react by alleviating the refugee crisis? To what extent do you feel engaged or disengaged from the Rohingya? If you wanted to change that, what might you do? It's a tough question. Well, on your way out, you could grab a resource guide to learn more about it, including where you can send help. Then there's this last text I wanted to look at from Isaiah, the Tyre pronouncement. So Tyre is a city in what was northern Israel at the time, currently Lebanon. The Tyre pronouncement. Howl, you ships of Tarshish, for havoc has been wrought, not a house is left. So in other words, there's been a storm. As they came from the land of Kittim, this was revealed to them. Mo'an, Domu, you coastland dwellers, you traders of Sidon, once thronged by seafarers. So it's asking us to change our silence into wailing, to howl. What would it mean for us to turn our silence into wailing, and what might that look like? Ross?
Not on this subject, but look what the young people have done with gun violence.
Absolutely.
They have taken a whole generation of a group of people who were doing nothing politically and turned it into a massive political active campaign that not only affects that age group, but their parents, their grandparents, their friends, their neighbors. That's an example of turning silence into wailing. Not on this subject necessarily, but in general.
I would say Holocaust survivors speaking out and sharing their stories is another example. All right, we're going to move into Musaf, but if you'd like to join us tonight for the reading of the names or within the 24-hour cycle, you'd be more than welcome to participate.